was one of the earliest, not so much scientific articles, that has been looking at movement and how to translate fascia-oriented movements in the fitness world. Basically, you look at movements that are using more the elastic recall of fascia rather than strengthening muscles, etc. Now, in fitness, we know a lot of how to strengthen muscles. We know exactly how to do that, how many weeks it takes, when to expect a plateau, etc., etc. We also know how to exercise the cardiovascular endurance. We also know how to train for neuromuscular coordination. But we did know very little. How do I strengthen my fascia? How do I make that more resilient? And also most of the sports injuries have been fascial injuries. So the next slide shows basically that in sports, the way how Bruce Lee has been able to do these powerful punches is that you store the tension in the fascial net, similar like the archer on the left. He would be stupid if he pushes the bow. He uses his muscles for a pre-tension, and then the real movement comes from a letting go of the muscles, and it is the stored energy in the fascial net that finally pushes the fist forward. So the next slide 31 on me here, shows basically that we use elastic rebound. So in the fascial fitness, that now many of us, or a few of us, together with Tom Myers and several others in that field, are bringing into the fitness field, coming from a fascial bodyworker's perspective, that we use these bouncing resonant movements again, that our forefathers basically have been done. So rather than a muscular push-up on the ground, you do one in which you bounce on the wall, in which you store the energy and you look for an elastic way of bouncing and swinging in there. The slide 32 shows the so-called ninja attitude. So if you do these bouncing exercises, you do them as silently as possible, similar in the spirit of these barefoot warriors. So a lot of hopping is being done, but you do it with listening with your ears. What is the least sound I can make while jumping up the stairs, up and down? The next slide shows basically this is where you want to use proprioception, that when you do a push-up at the wall, you use your muscles and your fascia to have a soft return in the direction, not a jerk-like, ropey direction swing. So it means you look for elegance in the movement. Slide number 34 shows that more clearly. So you start the movements with a preparatory counter movement. So before you swing your leg forward, as shown on the picture on the right, you bring your pelvis forward while getting your leg backwards. So it's the pre-extension. Now the next two slides, or the next slide, number 35, shows you, well, there you see the classic kettlebells that are already used in the gym, in which you can do these elastic swinging movements. But here we have been cooperating with a company that's called Water Rower, that they use more user-friendly swing weights that your client will be more happy to be using, and to introduce them into your yoga spa or fitness or Pilates exercise. Slide number 36 shows you how they can be doing movements with them, but you need to teach them that they are not doing jerky movements because they can injure themselves as much. But you start always with a pre-extension. That means that your body axis gets longer at the initiation of the movement. Slide number 37 shows basically the question that many of you have been getting. Well, this is not new. This is the kind of gymnastics that my mother or my grandmother was doing. Yes, it is a reinventing of the wheel, but now we know why the wheel is turning. These people have been doing these elegant movements because they looked and felt elegant, and that's what they do. And they have an intense pleasure factor associated with them. There is much more elegance in these people who are doing these fascial movements than in people watching in a muscular gym in which they slowly lift the weight and bring it down. Whereas if you have that elegance, the resonance, the pre-extension into them, we now know, and we didn't know that 5 years ago, that they involve the fascia more than the muscles, and that is new and very exciting. So the next slide, slide number 38, shows basically the most important principle for people getting into fascial fitness, gentle perseverance. You can train muscles in a couple of months. So it is like a short investment, and in a couple of months you have a big improvement, but then you get into a plateau, and then you have to exercise a lot, and you still get very little increases. Now, if you invest into fascia, and you need to tell that to your clients, that the half-life of collagen is about 1 year. So if they invest into fascia by doing yoga, by doing fascia sessions with you, by doing fascial fitness, it means that in about 6 months they can start to feel a difference in the structural architecture of their body. And so if they exercise between 6 and 24 months, it means they rebuild their whole body. So it is like growing bamboo. At the beginning you don't see anything. You only have a very small sprouting that you see there. And the neighbor who has been going to the muscle gym, he has all these strong trees already. But then he gets into a plateau, and your bamboo keeps growing and growing and growing. And after several years, you still have returns when you go into your yoga gym. So this completes my talk. The next slide shows basically a preview of the DVD that you finally see afterwards, which is an excerpt of a DVD that we sell there, The Nature of Fascia. There you learn, as a manual practitioner, how you stimulate Golgi receptors in fascia, what you can expect, the Pacini receptors in fascia, Ruffinis. Basically, it's an Italian family in which you have these 3 oldest brothers, Golgi, Pacini, Ruffinis, and their interstitial sister. So thank you very much. The next slide shows my collaborator.